Welcome to the chat. We're just giving just a moment here for everyone to join up with us, and we will go ahead and get started. Being difficult. Just giving just a moment for everyone to join and attend, and then we'll get started. And while I fix my mic issues. Alrighty. Welcome everybody. As always, this is our Farmer Office Hours. Like every Farmer Office Hours, I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules and your busy days to join us. Um, like most Farmer Office Hours, we're here to just give you some updates, kind of detail some common questions, talk all things subspace, and answer any questions that you all may have. As always, with most Farmer Office Hours, feel free to throw any questions you have into the side chat. We'll mark them with the little red emoji question mark, just to let you know that we've seen it, and then we'll finish off the event with our Q&A as we detail all those questions. To start with, though, I have this. My name is Justin, and I also have Emil up here on the stage with me today. How's it going, Emil? Always, always exciting to have the community events that we've been doing every week. Um, as always, stay tuned in our announcements channels, both on in Discord and on the forum, to keep out for any future announcements coming up. We are kind of approaching an exciting time here for Subspace, and I know we have lots of questions on, when 3H, sir, and things along those lines. Obviously, the announcement channels will definitely be your place to get that information firsthand. Uh, Beyond that, let's take it away with some status of Gemini 3 and see where we're at so far. Emil, do you want to run through the node stats currently? Great. It's always exciting to see the statistics of the network. We've been growing pretty decently lately. We've been brushing up against that 8 terabytes. So hopefully we can get pushed over here a little bit with the next version, or the next coming editions, I should say, of Gemini 3. Hopefully get us over that limit. Um, do apologize if my mic's quiet, guys. I'm trying to keep it as loud as possible. Um, all right, we'll get it adjusted in just a moment here. Um, Beyond that, though, as always, we did have a new version last week So make sure to update to that latest version as well. As Neil mentioned, that is Gemini 3G 2024 Jan '08 release version. So you definitely will want to run that version. We'll detail why here in a little bit as we kind of go through this some of the common problems. Um, but one thing we did want to highlight was the some of the updates that we've been making to the Block Explorer. And I think Emil will give us a little bit of a demo and some detail there. So I'll hand it over to him while I get my microphone turned up.
Definitely. Thank you so much. How is that on my audio level? Hopefully that's a little better. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me or if I still sound. Do apologize for the. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Uh, so yes, Astro. As always, we're going to continue to refine and improve this as we can. Uh, oh, looks like that's worked. All right. Neil, if you want to hop on that first question for me, I'll try and get this updated.
Seems like audio is just not on my side today. So I'll go with the better sounding but quiet one, and I'll just try and speak up, and hopefully everyone can hear at least a little bit on my audio levels. Wouldn't be a farmer office hours without some technical trouble, am I right? Alrighty. So yeah, as always, Astral, we're going to continue to evolve and update that. We're always looking for any feedback. And or we're also open source. So if you want to hop into the repo and take a crack at some things, we definitely always appreciate some developers giving it the good old college try as well. Um, Beyond that, though, we have seen a couple common questions popping up on the farmer side um, that we wanted to address as well. First things first, one being that, we could have done a better job communicating on our part, which we've definitely learned our lesson there and will continue to improve on. But is regarding Pulsar, the Advanced CLI, and Space Acres. Now, those are the three different ways that you can typically run the Subspace Farmer. Traditionally, Pulsar was actually our recommended route, as it was kind of a simplified CLI route. Um, and kind of would be the easier to use format. Unfortunately, for the time being, Pulsar has been facing some trouble. So as it as I would suggest, it's to not use Pulsar, at least until we get a new version with updates and fixes out. As until we get those versions out, you may run into various issues with Pulsar where it can't start plotting, or it's crashing when it syncs to 100%. It might not even start in some cases. For the time being, the official recommended route is going to be using the advanced CLI. I know it can be daunting, but to be perfectly, honest, if you can get Pulsar working in your terminal, you can probably get advanced CLI working too. It'll just be a little more copy paste intensive. So that is the official recommended route, the advanced CLI. If you're really, really, really looking to run a desktop, more simplified application, you can test Space Acres. This is the unofficial desktop GUI release that Nazar has kind of been personally working on as a side project. Feel free to test that out. For the time being, it seems to be working, but bear in mind it's very early alpha and it is unofficial, meaning you may not get certain support, or they may have features that you're looking for that aren't quite there just yet. Um, but we'd love to hear any feedback that you may have, so we can at least continue to get that updated and upgraded as well. But once again, advanced CLI recommended route. Don't recommend using Pulsar right now, but feel free to test Spake Acres and let us know how it's working. Another issue we've been seeing on on the old version right before the January 8 version, is a bit of a slowdown in plotting if you're using various different types of NUMA settings. Um, Ultimately, this was a bug that was found by you all in the community. So thank you all for your continued testing and support. But luckily, with the January 8 release that Nazar and the development team got out, that issue has been fixed. So if you're still seeing the slowdown plotting with NUMA and things along those lines on your setup, feel free to just upgrade to that latest version, and that should resolve your issue. Um, but as always, let us know in the forums or in support if you do run into any trouble with even the latest versions as well. As we're always curious to hear feedback on those kinds of fixes. Now, for our Windows users, we've also been seeing a new recent bug that's popped up. It's kind of the reoccurring death plague bug that we keep seeing on Windows, which is high memory usage. While we obviously expect a little bit of memory usage, we don't expect a full 99% max out at all times, which we have been seeing from some users, and it's been reported in the community. And currently, we have a forum post going on. So we don't quite have a fix out for this one just yet. It's kind of in that stage where we're still testing and trying to pinpoint the exact problem. So if you are on Windows and are seeing a very high memory usage and would like to test it out, or even just provide some additional information for the development team, that would definitely be greatly appreciated. I'm posting a link here in the chat right now that you can take a look at, that is related to that bug where the development team and the community has been testing and just gathering information, trying to get our wits about us on this particular issue with the Windows Farmer. It's not completely detrimental from what we've seen. In most cases, it's just that the farmer is trying to utilize, pretty much all of the RAM that it can. Generally, it will lighten up a little bit, but definitely not ideal. So we want to hope to get that fixed in the coming versions. So any information you can provide definitely would be appreciated. Trandon, I know my mic is a little quiet. For some reason, my audio is fighting me today. Feel free to right click on my name and you can turn my particular volume up to 200%. Seems to be the best approach for today's event, unfortunately. But I am trying to speak loudly so you all can hear me nice and clear. Um, Another issue that we're seeing, as I mentioned, I've been seeing this one pop up a lot, so I just want to reiterate is that Pulsar can't start plotting, or Pulsar is crashing when syncing to 100%, or Pulsar is just not starting at all. Once again, this is because Pulsar is currently not working as expected, so it is not in a functional latest release at this point in time. So if you are using Pulsar, you will need to switch to the advanced CLI, or Space Acres. I would suggest the advanced CLI though, just once again. And the last big thing that I just wanted to mention, at least in this section goes, is to watch out for some CLI changes. So it's not in this version currently, but I just wanted to give you all the heads up that the development team has been doing a massive refactor on this CLI. Um, removing many of the additional flags that aren't needed, renaming and rewording flags to things that make more proper sense. This kind of also goes in line with some updates that are being made on the upstream substrate end, but also just kind of helps position Subspace, our releases, in kind of a more buttoned up version of our releases. So once again, these aren't out yet, but here in the next couple releases, it's going to be a pretty significant change in far as how your CLI functions on the advanced CLI and what you all may be used to. I know for some of our veteran power users, that's definitely going to raise some questions. But we are currently documenting that, and we'll hope to have a really smooth upgrade guide for you all once those new versions do come out. But just bear that in mind. Any scripts or fancy tooling you may have built up will probably need a pretty significant update here in the next coming release. So just make sure to keep your eyes open on that. Emil, did you have any other common questions or issues that you wanted to knock out? Great. Beyond that, let's hop into our open Q&A. As always, we do have always end these guys off with an open Q&A session. Well, it is a little bit of a lighter one this week. We are kind of right in the middle between our next versions coming. I know you all are curious. First question we saw today is when Gemini 3H? That's the big question. Um, I would love to give you an exact date, but all I can say is that it's coming soon, trademark. Um, Realistically, I would expect it within the end of the month. Obviously, that deadline is subject to change depending on how development goes, but you should see it here coming pretty rapidly for when Gemini 3H will be released. And that one will include our mini space race, which will be our effort to kind of approach as much space as possible on the network. So definitely keep your eyes open for the announcements channel on when that will be coming. But it hasn't been any, no major delays or anything along those lines. The development team has been making pretty steady progress on Gemini 3H. Let's see what other questions we have so far. Mostly about my audio. Alrighty. Definitely. And that's, just so you all know, those kinds of metrics, like Emil mentioned, will always be ones that we'll kind of continue to tune. We're not going to act like we have the magic number that's the perfect answer, but more so that, that's the nice thing about Substrate and the CHIO POS and the POS proof of archival storage that the team has built out. It's very tunable. We can adjust things as needed and kind of tweak that performance to be real optimal for what we feel that our farmers and our executors will need down the line. Alrighty. Let's see if we have any other major questions. A little light on the question side this time, which is kind of surprising. I'm sure that'll get us some more. This is an interesting one. I've only seen this pop up generally in the Pulsar side. I would definitely love to see if you wanted to open up a support thread. We can kind of dive into that one with you. Ultimately, your farmer generally should be able to restart with no issues. To be able to shut down multiple farms, reopen multiple farms, and resync without any major issues. Depending on how you're shutting your farmer down, this could be potentially problematic. If you're just ending task or something along those lines, I could see that causing problems. But if you're just doing, your general Control C and the command prompt, that should shut it down gracefully. So if that's not happening, we'll definitely want to take a look at that. Feel free to open up a thread in Discord here and tag me directly into it. Um, and we can kind of dive into that with you and hopefully get that resolved because it doesn't sound ideal, and especially if it's affecting multiple farms. We want to make sure our whales are well taken care of and not facing those kinds of issues. As obviously they'll be especially vital as we approach mainnet, but also just even space race. Um, so we'll definitely want to take a look at that one. Next question I see here is from Serial Plotter. Is when will the incentivized details be known? I believe you may be talking about like all of the details from incentivized testnet to mainnet. We will be releasing those details as we get into the mainnet sections. I know we're kind of approaching towards that end, but we will do like a full form post write up that kind of covers everything as far as what rewards you can be expecting, and what kind of details, what you recorded on the various different types of test nets and things along those lines. In fact, we already have a draft version of this. Um, while it's not perfect, it still needs to be cleaned up and beautified a little bit. If you go to the Explorer at explorer.subspace.network, and then if you type in your address, just a moment here to pull it up. So if you click on your address and go to your like particularly account screen, um, you'll see your overall balance graph on the left side, but on the right side you can see previous testnet rewards. Actually, let me just share my screen to show this cool little feature because it is a nice one. Alrighty, should be able to see my screen. Perfect. Alrighty. So yeah, if you punch in your address here, I'll just go to the account section for the sake of finding an easy address. But if you type in your address and then go to your main address page, bear with me, my computer's chugging along a little bit while the live streaming Discord and the Explorer running. Here we go. And if we go to the actual, we'll just go to a random address here. Once my love computer decides to load. All right, perfect. So as you can see on the main screen, you have your overall balance on the left side, and on the right side, you'll see current rewards section. There's a new tab called Priest Testnet Rewards. So if you click over, bear in mind the slowness this isn't the Explorer, this is just the computer having a bit too much. Perfect. So once you get on the previous test network, you will see all of the previous testnet, your locked TSSC, and the mainnet allocation section. Obviously, mainnet allocation, leave it out for now as finalize the math, but you can at least see how much TSSC you've racked in the previous versions. Do note, Gemini 3G is not indexed currently on this section, as it's still obviously we're still working through Gemini 3G. But this can at least give you an insight And obviously, this will be the place to look as we continue to upgrade and improve this functionality. But this will kind of at least give you an insight on, what you're looking at as far as all of the previous testing that you've done, which for some of you we know is quite a bit. So definitely check that out, and feel free to give us any feedback as well. The product team, this was kind of one of those little things they just slipped in there without telling us. So we would love to see any feedback that you all may have, or any suggestions, so we can continue to improve our user interaction on the Astral Explorer. Question we may have from Wezel: is mainnet beta being delayed then? Um, Not that I'm aware of for the time being. We've been making pretty steady progress, but as far, at least to my knowledge, we are sticking to our Win Subspace plan. Um, but obviously, all development work, it always does remain in a bit of flux. So I might end up eating these words later, but at least for the time being, the mainnet plan is still our current plan that was documented in the Win Subspace plan. So it should be coming here pretty quickly. For anyone who's curious, definitely make sure to check out that blog on our Medium page, which you can get to just by going to blog.subspace.network. Seedpoint asks when Genesis will likely be postponed, right? Um, same thing as Wes's answer. We're still sticking to our current plan, but as all development, things may stay in fluctuation as we get closer to those points. Another question from Wessel is, and will we be doing staking in 3H? Yes, I believe we will. I do believe we still need to detail, exactly what the incentivization may look like for 3H, and the staking side of things. But I believe we will continue to try and test out our staking functionality, and obviously include that portion. Obviously, GPU farming is, in the grand scheme, it's kind of a nice to have feature, that we can always get added down the line. So while it is something we look forward to adding, it's not going to be the number one priority as far as the development team. So we may see it before mainnet, we may not. It just kind of depends on what the development team is able to knock out. Um, Hopefully, we can get some more details on the GPU side of things, down the line for you. Can the team at least assure that GPU plotting won't be available in testnet? Considering we don't have GPU plotting at this moment in time, and I know it's not number one on the development team's, to-do list, I could say it's a reasonably safe assumption that we probably won't have GPU farming in the at least immediate test nets. Maybe in another version down the line, but I would say it's rather unlikely. If anything, it may be more likely to see it kind of near the mainnet or post mainnet area. But as always, that is always subject to change. Maybe a developer gets a fire under them one night and stays up till 4 a.m. and gets it knocked out. But I would err on the side of probably not in the immediate future. Question from Zulkis is the pledge storage space intended to be used by dApps, or is it solely for the purpose of consensus? Great question, Zolkis. This actually kind of highlights what we think is one of the main usability and selling points of the Subspace network in the grand scheme of things, at least in my opinion. No, the storage space is designed to be used by dApps. It can be used by users for archival storage. It can be used by corporations on an enterprise level if needed. So definitely, this is the reason that we have our accurate pricing model within the Subspace network that allows for true price discovery on the cost of storage on our network. It's designed to be used by dApps. We would actually prefer that dApps, various programs, any kind of thing. If you want to, you could even do like an IPFS kind of persistent storage application on Subspace. These are all perfectly great applications of what to use the Subspace storage for. Um, we will continue to work out the tooling on that end. That may take some time to get that nice and refined. But as far as what the subspace network can support, you can wrap any kind of data in a subspace transaction and submit it. As long as you've got the TSSC to pay that cost of storage fee, there will be no issues. And ultimately, our network is designed with incentive compatibility on scaling storage in mind. So ultimately, if storage space gets tight because some DApp took up, 7 petabytes of data, all that will mean is that it will become extremely profitable for farmers, and that will just increase the amount of space that comes online, and then eventually lowering that cost of storage again. Um, Definitely something that we could talk to on hours about, the capabilities of Subspace. So feel free to use that data. Don't feel like it's stuck there just for consensus and executors to use. We would actually prefer developers to use it. That would be great. Awesome. Thank you, Peter and Erdnapa, for the links there. I saw that you guys linked for the current issue that we were talking about with Peter. Peter, I will hop on that with you once we wrap up the event here, and hopefully we can get that taken care of. ERD Napa asked, when will tokenomics for mainnet be released? Um, Tokenomics is something that the leadership team has been working on for some time. I think we're nearing the finalization point. We don't have a set release date, but it should be coming out here pretty quickly before mainnet. That way we can let you all know what the tokenomics are looking like. Now that's been a common question and a common one that we're feeding back up to the leadership as well to hopefully get back and get released for you guys here in the coming weeks. Hayden Gem asked, when drop, who eligible? I can't answer when, other than soon trademark, which I know can be frustrating, but I don't want to throw a date out there that I'm gonna end up having to eat back. But it should be coming here in the I'd say around mainnet. Let's say it that way. Um, as for who's eligible, that's a much easier question to answer. The people who will be eligible for the community participation drop will be those who have participated in the prior test nets. That includes Aries, Gemini 1, Gemini 2, and Gemini 3, including multiple different stages. And depending on how much you farmed on those prior versions, will depend on how much you get from the drop. Um, Obviously, we will have a much more detailed, announcement with the exact specifics. But that's roughly what to be looking forward. So, if you haven't participated in past version of testnets and you want to participate and get potentially involved in the drop, I would highly suggest to participate in Gemini 3. Run a farmer and participate in any community events that you can. Additionally, we do hope to do a community sale that will be available to community members first. So that will also be another thing that farming on Gemini 3 can potentially gain you access to. Punky was asking when I want to went to the Explorer and put in my account address, where does it show the previous test nets? So you'll punch in your address, and then on the right side it'll say current rewards, and then you should see a little tab that says previous testnet rewards. If you click that, it'll switch over and it should show you. Oh, looks like Punky found it. Capybara, is it possible to farm subspace on subspace? Uh, if I'm thinking about it the way you're thinking about it, no. I'm, you can't run like a DApp or something that's like running like a recursive kind of farm or anything like that. If I'm missing something on your question, Capybara, feel free to add more details. I'm curious what you may mean there. Um, Zocus has one. Is there any docs about using space by DApps? I have some DApps ideas and need testing. We don't have any official docs, Zocus, but I do have a couple things we've built in the past, just messing around. I'll send you some resources in the serve once I can hunt them down for you. I would definitely love to see, your feedback on development. I think that's something that would be great to see. And, as always, testing it out in the real world is the best way to get that kind of feedback. Yes, thank you, ERD Napa, for mentioning the previous testnet rewards. The data isn't perfect. There's some rounding here and there that we still need to correct. So you might, you know, post it in there and be like, oh, that doesn't seem right. If you notice that, just take a screenshot, send it my way. We'll get it back to the product team. As far as the previous testnet reward calculator goes, as I mentioned, it's still kind of an early version, and we're still testing it out. So yeah, there's no guarantees it's perfect, at least in this iteration. So any feedback will definitely help, so we can get that updated. Alrighty. In out IK. What are the plans for Subspace in future after mainnet? Some collaborations with Uniswap, etc., for example. Definitely, obviously, we will have inter network collaborations. We don't have exact names to drop just yet, um, but we do envision Subspace as being a little bit more in the modular cross compatibility sector of Web3. Meaning, we ultimately hope that the Subspace network can integrate with pretty much any network, compute, storage, proof of work, proof of stake, all your favorites, ETH, Solana, whatnot. We hope to have integrations with all those networks, which hopefully will also obviously allow integrations within those DApp systems as well, such as Uniswap or whatnot. Um, Ultimately, as far as what the plans are for Subspace in the future, after as far as like what we at Subspace Labs will be focusing on, it's going to be finalization and optimization of the network. So that's when we'll start to introduce things like sharding, various different really nice to have features. After mainnet, that's probably more likely when you would see GPU mining or sorry GPU farming, plotting coming out. So those kinds of quality of life improvements and obviously continued iteration is what we're going to be focusing on. But we'll also be ramping up, network partnerships and things along those lines after mainnet as well. Ultimately, that's kind of when the brakes come off, if you will, and we'll be really kind of expanding Subspace in all directions that we can in various different ways. There's also some other projects that have kind of been in the top secret sector of Subspace Labs that might get some more attention after we hit mainnet as well. Alrighty. We'll do the last couple questions here. So one from Punky's Hungry is win Coinbase, and also Ivan win Binance. um, I will say we're working on getting these kinds of things moving forward, but I can't say much as a lot of that stuff is done with the executive team behind closed doors as we talk to the various different exchanges and whatnot. But what I will say is we're hoping to get listed on all of the major exchanges that we can, providing as much accessibility um, for all of you. So that way, you're not stuck. If someone wants to buy into Subspace, they have that option. Uh, but I don't want to spill the beans exactly on here just yet. Alrighty. And Capybara clarified: is it possible to create a DApp with a subspace farmer inside and using the network space for plot? Technically possible, I'm sure, but economically possible, very unlikely. If it was just read only, sure. But our plots do update and kind of have slight changes and things like that along those lines. So unfortunately, that wouldn't quite be possible, Capybara. If it would, that would be quite the great hack. Feel free to test it out though. Let me know if you can get it working. I'd always curious to see if someone can make some interesting things work. But functionally, it's probably not going to be economically feasible, as it's kind of an anti-pattern, um, as far as if you would make a lot of TSSC or something like that on it. And what about ambassador program? In out, IK asked. I assume he's kind of following this up with his initial question of what is subspace plans after mainnet. Yes, the ambassador program will continue to ramp up and obviously take on more and more responsibility into mainnet. The ambassador program we kind of envision as the start of our governance. So we'll kind of piggyback the governance off from there. The actual ambassador team themselves have been working a lot on the governance side, especially Jonathan, who's been kind of leading that initiative. Um, they will likely be taking on more and more of a larger role within kind of managing Subspace and kind of as far as the decisions going on with the Subspace network, and obviously governance side as things progress. We will also continue to expand the ambassador program. We hope to actually get it to be one of the larger ambassador programs in the space, and we also hope to kind of use that as the foundational for the community side of things as Subspace Lab starts to kind of decouple from the network, and we kind of bring in some more of that decentralization and kind of taking away our, for lack of a better word, our authoritarian hold that we've had on the network through these testing phases. So the ambassador program is going to be crucial in kind of democratizing that decentralization. All right, last question for the day from Shasi. Is there any plans to improve the staking interface UI/UX? No plans at all. It will stay as horrible as possible. No, I'm just kidding, Shasi. Of course, we will continue to iterate that process. The staking interface is something that, at least in my opinion, and I think the product team agrees, it's kind of a forever evolving equation. Standards that were there a year ago are different now as far as what users expect when they kind of get to these dashboards. So we will definitely continue to improve it and ideally get it to be as smooth as possible, and less hair pulling as possible. If you have any suggestions or any feedback, feel free to definitely throw it in Discord. We're always curious to see these kinds of things and how we can improve. Yes, and as Emil mentioned as well, it will become a part of Astral eventually. So we're also working on kind of unifying those under the Block Explorer, so you don't have to jump around to 800 different web pages and things along those lines. Alrighty. Beyond that, I think that's all we have for you today, everybody. Um, as always, I do want to mention, we have a decent amount of community activities. As we mentioned last week, Stake Wars Endgame did kind of approach us. So friendly reminder to, if you're going to stop staking, to ensure to deregister your operator. There's the forum post for any of those who may have missed our event from last week, um, regarding the Stake Wars Endgame approaching. Additionally, we also have our monthly docs contest. So you have the opportunity to win $250 if you have the best community PR to the docs. We're just looking for quality of life improvements. Anything that you see that bothers you in docs, any feature you feel like should be there but's not there, feel free to add it yourself, and it could bank you a 250 USDC. Additionally, within that docs contest, we also do have a new $50 bounty for the top translator of the month. So if you speak an additional language beyond English, take a look at our translation portal on our docs, and feel free to contribute some translations. It might be an easy way to bag a $50 USDC prize. And who knows, if you win both contests, you could win up to 300 USDC, for realistically just a few hours of work, which seems like a pretty fair deal in my opinion. Um, but also, we also are looking to expand our translations really so we can kind of get as broad as possible, um, for our community reach. And beyond that, as I mentioned, we have mini space race coming soon with Gemini 3H. And also, hopefully, if you want to, don't forget to test out Space Acres and let us know what you all think. Thank you all for joining us today, and I appreciate all the amazing questions as always. Emil, thank you for your help. And also, thanks everyone for bearing with my quiet audio today. Hopefully, we'll have that fixed next week. Have a good week, everybody.